Hello, this is William Hemphill with the Faith and Family Matters podcast. I am a minister, a pastor, and a pastoral therapist that works a lot with marriages. Today, I want to talk about something a little bit different, and it's called loving each other during the election season. Loving each other during the election season. I want to start with a story. We're, of course, in the election season in the United States, 2024. We're having elections for president in November. This story actually goes back to 2020. I remember during that particular election season, I happened to be interacting with a group of Christians. We were interacting via social media, and a particular minister had been doing messages on things to vote for an election. And so there was a lot of conversation under this. What I happened to notice is there was a huge divide between what was right and what was wrong, based on not just your faith in Christianity, but also your ethnicity. And so there were a lot of white Christians, and I'm just saying it, that argued about the rightness and wrongness of abortion, and that was the most important issue. There were a lot of Black Christians or African Americans, or either some others, who argued about the importance of equality in treatment. And what happened is the arguments got so bad, or the discussions got so bad, that the blog had to be shut down because people were arguing with each other and calling each other names, questioning the faith of others just because of different views on an issue. I was even part of that discussion. But what I want to share is a little bit of my experience because I think it can give us some ideas on how we can love each other during the election season. Well, in the midst of my discussions, I'm an African American Christian, and so of African American descent. And so I actually was concerned about some of the issues in the racial climate, being a father, concerned about some of the issues that my children had experienced and how their humanity could be valued. I remember having a discussion with a woman of Anglo descent, and she actually was doing a lot of work in ministry about abortion, helping women to deliver babies safely, and actually finding support for these women even afterwards. So she is to be commended for putting her money, time, and resources where her speech was. We had a discussion. We could not agree on the most important issue, but we could both agree that the work we did was out of our faith in Christ. And we could both agree that we were doing work, and while we disagreed on what might have been the most important position, we could affirm one another. Even to the point where somebody decided they wanted to insult the work I was doing, and she actually stood up for me. And she wasn't facing as much heat, but if I did see it, I would have advocated for her. And I actually thanked her for her work. And I think we kind of ended praying for each other. Here's why I say that's important. In this political season, you're going to have candidates and news media and all these different folks telling us about what's right, what is wrong. If you vote for this candidate, the world's going to end. If you vote for that candidate, the world's going to end. All these different things. We're also going to be making decisions for candidates based on our hopes and our fears, known and unknown to us. My invitation for us is when we are talking to our friends, when we're talking to our families, when we're talking to our spouses and our loved ones, that we take the opportunity to listen, to understand those hopes and fears behind their decisions to vote. Because those are the things that are the most important. Finding ways to listen, to understand, instead of listening to devalue somebody. Because oftentimes we feel like we have to devalue somebody else to get our point across. And the truth is, we all have our hopes and we all have our fears. So, my invitation for us in this election season, let it not be something that divides us so much that marriages can split up, that families can split up, that friendships can end, that partnerships can end, because a lot of times those things happen. But that we take the opportunity to listen and say, like I did with that young lady, tell me why abortion is so important to you, why protecting unborn is so important to you. And she could tell me. She valued the sanctity of life. And then she could talk about, we talked about, okay, I think I talked about, well, what happens after birth? And then she told me a little bit about the work that she was doing. And not only did she value the sanctity of life, but she valued ways to get mothers resources so they could support their children. I could hear that and could commend her. I think we voted on different sides of the aisle, but then she asked me, what was that? Why was that so important to me? And I could tell her, I say, look, as an African American male in this country, I've felt the sting of discrimination. I've felt the sting and unsafety of discrimination in my family. Talked about how I've had people wrongly stopped by police in my family and imprisoned just for being the color of their skin and how dangerous that is to us. And I talked about some of the work that I do as a therapist, as a counselor, as a minister to help heal some of that pain in people and so on and so forth. And she could listen to that and she could affirm that and say, that makes sense. It was about hopes and fears for us. Neither one of us were quote unquote bad, evil people. It's just what was our biggest hopes and our biggest fears and how they were speaking to us. So my hope and encouragement is that we can listen beyond that. Because here's the truth. Political systems or not, as people of faith, we're called to be salt and light in the earth and to make a difference. And so part of the work that I think we should be doing is we should be looking to make a difference no matter what party is in office. We should be looking to see how God would have us to work to bring healing to people in the areas in which we are wounded throughout society with the grace and the love of Jesus Christ. That should be the purpose. And the political process is part of it, but that's not the only way. And my experience from living, sometimes the political process can be the least effective way. Now, depending on what's done, they can set rules and things that make navigating and doing things easier and more difficult, but we still do that work. So, like with this young lady I talked to, she's still working to help women have safe births, healthy births, and that no lives are lost to abortion to the best that she can do. And she doesn't care whether a Democrat or a Republican is in office, she's going to do her work. I still work to help people spiritually and emotionally heal their wounds individually in marriages and collectively in society, in the church. I help people deal with some of their spiritual pain and trauma to help them reconnect to Christ in a real and special way. And I do that work whether there's a Democrat, Republican, or anybody else in office, because I do that work out of love for God and love for people. So as we think about loving each other in the election season, let's think about how we can listen to understand each other, understand our pain, understand our wounds, but then also look to understand our hopes and dreams and how we can work for that in a collective society when there are people different from us. This is William Hemphill with the Faith and Family Matters podcast. I may release some more thoughts during the election season on how we can still affirm and love one another, especially when all the noise is going on that wants to divide us as people. Take care and have a wonderful day.